right, make sure the microphone's turned on this time. Hey everyone, Richard Carlton here. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. It's currently about 6 minutes after the hour, and it's 1 o'clock here in the Pacific time zone, but most of you are somewhere else. For those of you, it's the middle of the night. I apologize, right? So welcome to fmtrain.tv, where we do great FileMaker training every business day. So today is kind of an audible. We got up to the football field, American football. Got up there, the quarterback is up there, and we realized that the play we were going to call wasn't going to work, so I had to change it out. And so as a result of that audible, I am here doing basically catch up things that have been kind of like Dead Bird Day, but there's been so much of it, we actually could probably fill 2 days. And so I'm going to kind of keep us on topic today. Tomorrow's a different day. We'll be talking tomorrow about a notification file, and then also taking a look at Hansa's 24U updates from him. Let's move along. So today is going to be a news day. We're going to cover a bunch of random bits of data. This is our upcoming broadcast schedule. Go to fmtraining.tv. You can press the live button over here to see the upcoming schedule. You can see the bundles right here. If you want to purchase a bundle for the training curriculum, it's about 90 hours of recorded content. Quite good. And so make sure that you have that. That's how you support the channel, right? It's very, very useful. Now, I'm going to flip over to my Slack application that I've got. Not for that one. Where is the one with the Richard Carlton, my personal Slack? So I got my news articles in here. I set aside for everyone so we knew what was going on. And so I'm going to move this over here. And so we have that down here. So not secret topics, conversational news topics that come up. So for those of you interested in FileMaker certification exam, Claris has not really articulated this, but I did take the beta exam for 19, although they say it's not version specific, but it's a new test that coincides with 19, conveniently enough. And they say that they're going to go to a non-version specific of the test, which is like, okay. So then once you take the test, so like in 10 years, because there's always people that take the test and they say, I'm FileMaker certified. And you're like, what version? Oh, I'm FileMaker certified 9, right? Or they'll say 7 or 10 or something. And that means they're not really relevant and up-to-date people. And so how do you tell if they're up-to-date or whatever? I don't know. Claris hasn't explained it. I don't know. It just means that theoretically I only have to take the test once ever again, and I'll never have to take it again, which will make my life much easier. It also makes it much more worthless, right? Because you can't tell if someone's current or not. Another topic that's come up, Claris keeps talking about this. It's not a new classified topic. It's a topic, I just wanted to bring this up, is that Larry yesterday was asking, this is where Larry should have spent his ammo. He was yesterday we were talking about what is a web viewer and what is an add-on the FileMaker platform. Why does it matter? Okay, we talked about that yesterday. Watched the recording, but we're going to have a dedicated video that talks about that. Make the case of why a web viewer is useful and what an add-on is, etc. So let's talk about understanding. So when a company comes out and says blah 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 blah, and it's important, and then people and of course doing this all the time, I'm stuck a little bit too inside the sausage factory. Like I'm too close to Claris, and I see the sausage being made, and then I look at the customer messaging, and so add-ons and JavaScript and web viewer objects make perfect sense. Core ML machine learning, right? I made a couple notes here about this, right? And these are my notes. And basically, Claris wants to say, go use it, go use it. It's great, go use it, go use it. Except that Claris has built something that only works conveniently enough on the Mac and on iOS devices. So it doesn't work on a WebDirect. If you have a Windows server, it doesn't work if you're a Windows client. It's like all sorts of stupid stuff in their specific implementation. I don't pitch or promote solutions that are not cross-platform. Okay. And so Claris keeps saying, "Oh, well, FileMaker 19 has got this in there, and it's so amazing." And I'm like, this goes back to something. I'm gonna harken back to something most of you don't know, don't remember, but I saw it very blatantly. So in 2010, Claris came out with their FileMaker mobile application called FileMaker Go. Okay, and at the time, I put a lot of money. We rented hotel space all throughout California. I did a road trip. We had banners and flyers about how this was amazing stuff. And people who came were like Larry yesterday, and it was nothing wrong with what Larry said. Larry brought me back to the Marine. Larry brought me back to reality to remind me that not everyone sees the value in what we're talking about. In this one, I already see the problem with this one in advance. In the issue with machine learning and machine learning, so people say, oh, it's artificial intelligence. It's not artificial intelligence. The computers are not self-aware, but the computers with machine learning can see patterns, and they are able to identify patterns. Like, for example, when you have those robot things on the capture thing, like, are you a real human? You can't go to Amazon and buy something unless you're a real human. Okay, identify the bicyclists who are singing a song with a harmonica, and you have to pick, and there's a bike and not a bike, and then a guy with a wheel stuck up his ass and some other stuff and trying to throw you off, and they're trying to keep it so the robot, the machine learning, can't figure out what's going on. The pictures are tricky, but a human brain who is thoughtful can figure it out, right? So machine learning is this idea, and so that you kind of fake a human and you do, like, for example, if you go to Claire, okay, so this is really great. So let's go to this real quick. This is another machine learning moment, right? So if we go to Claris.com, okay? Every time I see this little guy, I want to freaking scream. So it's down here at the bottom of the page. So we're going to scroll down the bottom of the page. You all can do this. In fact, we made an outtake video about this one time. So you come down here, you look around, you kind of like click a little bit, but you don't do anything, and then you just wait, and the mouse doesn't move. And down here comes the robot. Here's a robot down at the bottom of the screen. Hey, just curious, are you new to Claris or FileMaker? Okay, you're talking to basically an idiot level grade of Siri on your phone, for those who know what Siri is. And so this is machine learning, and it's supposed to get smarter, but it does really stupid stuff, right? Let's see. So hey, just curious, are you new to Claris or FileMaker? Okay, I'm new. I've used it before. No, I've used it before. Let's try that. Let's pretend we're Larry, right? Great. What brings you here today? So they give you, so it's like, here's these like canned deals. It's not even like really machine learning. This is like, if you actually would type something like, oh, I'm interested in seeing web viewers or something, then it would see that and then like, think about it. So that's machine learning. Making the case for machine learning right now is like making the case for FileMaker Go 10 years ago. Businesses don't get it. They don't understand it. It's not relevant. It's not, now I'm not saying it can't help their business, but unless they understand it, they're not going to buy it, okay? And so Claris is like, we have this. This is great. We should sell this. And I'm like, okay. But the customer doesn't understand it. Like for me, mobile devices were like such an automatic thing. We're going to take FileMaker. We're going into the field. We're not going to take a laptop with a flippy hinge and you drop it and it rips the screen off and you could ruggedize the phone or the iPad. It all makes perfect sense. And so the issue is that people's brains are not there yet and they don't give it, okay? Let me help everyone about machine learning. No one gives, okay? Let me put a big booming mic. No one gives a, it sounds like amazing, but Amy Sheely, attention on deck. You're up to bat. Okay, here comes the big question for you. Ready? What do you do and where would a machine, an automatic robot help you in your FileMaker database, okay? AI and taking photos of a claim insurance so it takes the picture, so it takes a pic of a lamp, it becomes a record that says lamp. Yeah, okay, so they have that right now. Okay, so there is a object identifying kind of capability that's in machine learning that as long as if you use the built-in stuff to FileMaker, you can do that. If you do it through an add-on through JavaScript, which I've seen done use an outside service where you send the image to service and it comes back, that can be done cross-platform. It's available right now. I saw this demoed 3 years ago, so it's not new technology. The question is to implement it and test it probably between $5,000 and $10,000. Is that worth it to you? Do you have, okay, here we go. All right, here we go. So here's 10,000 bucks. Let me get it out of my stack right here. All right, so here is 10 grand. So Amy, do you have 10 grand and is it worth it for you to spend for that machine learning right now? That's a yes or a no. No. Perfect. And I knew the answer would be no just because Amy's real business and I understand business people, right? That's the problem. So the technology is still kind of in its infancy. It's not really universally understood by businesses, and the businesses that want it suddenly go, well, 10 grand to implement that, 5 to 10 grand, because the developer has to go in there unless you find a guy. The demo that I saw was from IBM's Watson. their automated machine learning thing they've had for years. And so as a result of that, you have to go in there, investigate how the API works. Just forget Claris Connect. It's never going to do it. So Claris Connect's not going to talk to IBM Watson, okay, period. So you get IBM Watson, you're going to talk to that, you're going to send it the image is going to come back, and you have to figure out how to code that API. Well, just having a developer spend 2 or 3 days on that, beating the documentation, learning how to write the API, learning how to interact with it, is at least 3 days of full-time work if you leave the developer alone and you don't distract them. So there's this inherent cost with the machine learning stuff, right? People see the benefit with mobile devices. They're like, well, if you have to take your FileMaker solution and build the layouts on the mobile devices, are you willing to pay 5 or 10 grand for that? And a lot of times the answer becomes yes, because now they see the value of taking that device. So one of the notes, the pieces, I'm not saying that this is bad, but Claris keeps running around talking about this, and Amazon talks about it. Because they have it, they want you to use it. They want you to get addicted to it so they can sell you more of it. Totally fine with that. That's what business is for. But I cannot make the business case that Amy will save, because if she puts 10 grand in, the rule of business is you get a 3-to-1 return on that at least. Okay. And so how is Amy going to take 10 grand, turn into $30,000? That's the question that I ask myself and other people ask themselves here. So does it mean it'll be no forever? The answer is no. Probably it actually took, by the time FileMaker Go came out, and we ran around, promoted it, and no one gave a shit, literally. And Claris you could look at their downloads. Not so much the downloads. People download it, they would play a little bit, and then they just set it aside. If you actually looked at adoption rates and actual client usage of it, it took years, probably 3 to 4 years before there was any sort of serious movement in that space. Now, if you don't have mobile, you're not even remotely relevant, right? So now if you don't have it, so 5 to 10 years, this machine learning thing will be kind of a real serious standard. So Claris is, so next item of business on our order. So Claris has been kind of on an interesting warpath with the customer service department. Basically, if you have Cloud 1 installations of server, which means that you bought Cloud, FileMaker Cloud, it's more than a year old, say, for example, right? You can always check and see what version of Cloud you're using by going up in the admin console. It'll say Cloud, blah, blah. It'll be a .2 or .1 or 1.2 or 2. Whatever. It's either 1 or 2. The version 1 stuff is being shut down, deprecated in January, but Claris already kind of went on the warpath with customers about this, blowing up their installation. So what happened is if Claris thought that was an old installation, it doesn't matter whether you actually owned it or not. If it was an old installation of it, or they thought you were pirating it, they shut off, they delisted the DNS entry. It's a fancy way of saying you were shut off from it, okay? For those of you who understand what DNS is, it means that the IP address still worked, but the DNS listing for it quit working, so people couldn't get to it. So started 2 weeks ago, Claris, we started getting panic calls from customers about Claris just shutting off their Cloud 1, and we look into it, and like, they are using, their cloud installation is version 15, 16, or 17, and but they're legal. They buy it every year. And so because they buy it every year, they're legal. So why are they being shut off? We sent the note back to Claris. They went, oh, our bad. We'll turn it back on for you. And so we had to explain to customers who had logically paid for the server and were legally licensed customers, by the way, sorry, your was shut off because Claris doesn't like you or whatever, pick the nouns and the verbs that you want to put in there. But the fact that you didn't update to the latest version meant that you weren't a valued customer. I actually want to ask them what a valued customer is. I would assume it's someone who's paying a license fee in their current, but they shut those people off too. So then they went back and turned those people back on. But those people, I guess, kind of in some ways have been notified, like through the long arm of the Claris law, that their server is going to be shut down in January. So they need to move. One person, there was 8 people affected. One person, we didn't know about it, had legitimately not renewed, and it was pirating the software. So he went out and quickly wrote a check to get back on, right? And then one person had renewed it some sort of weird way, and Claris had lost track of it, and they shut them off anyway. So, so there is some mayhem in terms of Claris managing cloud servers. and it doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth. This is just news. This is not my opinion. Nothing about what's just said is my opinion, okay, except that I think it's probably bad. Maybe Claris think this is good. But I'm just simply, this is factual data points I'm telling you about, right? So my server team has not been taking any new projects or contracts to build new servers because we've been going to customers trying to make sure that they're still alive, and cardiac paddles and resuscitating their stuff. So hopefully that will calm down at some point. Claris did say yesterday that they are listening to customers. So if you have questions or thoughts or comments about how they're doing, they say they are listening. And so I'm just going to take them at face value. And you can send them an email wherever you want to send it to and ask them whatever you want to ask them. But yeah, so anyway. Amy said, Miss Lobster, it would be cool to interact with your database through Siri or Alexa. I wouldn't pay for it, but it would be cool. Right. Well, okay. So once again, you can interact through Siri in a limited way. And people have done it with Alexa too. I've seen them do that with FileMaker with Alexa. It's always kind of a hack and it works. But I saw that done at DEF CON a couple of years ago. It's out there if you want to chase that down. Yeah, so you can automate the voice stuff if you want to interact with it that way. My concern about Alexa is that, so here's the problem. So here's the good and bad of this. So for those of you who don't understand this, and maybe most of you understand this. Siri sucks. Why does Siri suck? Because Siri doesn't, according to Apple, keep track of what you say, and it doesn't learn your syntax. It's not supposed to. And so whenever you're talking to it, every time it's not pulling up its database of every way Richard says the word, okay? Alexa actually really phones home and keeps track of conversations and things like that. And so in terms of privacy and stuff like that, if you have that piece of equipment in your house, you've got a problem. In fact, generally, if you're trying to do any sort of nefarious kind of stuff, you need to take your phones and throw them out the window or leave them behind and use analog, non-digital technology, because Alexa for sure listens and keeps track of stuff. Google is much worse on this than Apple is. Apple at least tries to fend off government agencies from listening to your stuff. I don't know how horribly successful they are, but there is that concern. So that is that part of it. So Claris is listening. There's been some mayhem with Cloud 1 servers, which seems to be rather quite deliberate on Claris's part. I don't have a clarification on that, and I'm pretty sure that we asked for that, and we got kind of a belligerent answer from, or passive aggressive was the word my team used from their support team down there. So I think that they had a lot of people that are aggravated by that. So some interesting, couple random interesting things. So I'm gonna hit this one here real quick. This is the upcoming schedule of products and availability. So Claris is trying to make the release cycles tighter. They're trying to put more money into development, less money into technical support. What they're not doing is certifying older versions of FileMaker. So FileMaker 19 is currently in market. It does not have an expected end of life date, but used to be that Claris, you'd see these September dates here. So it would be, so really this year, it should be September of 2020. They should end support for FileMaker 18. They're not going to do that. They're just going to kill it in May. So normally, so that will mean that FileMaker is exactly 2 years old, and then they shoot it and kill it. So which means that if there's a bug in it, a critical security bug, it's tough cookies, right? So you're out of luck, which means that you need to be using FileMaker 19. And so just keep that in mind. So if you want to make sure you have support for that, you're going to want to keep track of that. Product Go store availability, right? So this is an interesting one. So Go 19 is in the store. Go 18 will be in the store until May. And then they pulled Go out of the stores. However, if you and your account had already downloaded Go, then it's still available. They don't remove you from getting, like, say your phone is destroyed or erased and you log back in with your account and you had FileMaker Go like 10 or 11 or something like that, Go 1.0. You can still go and download it. It may not work. They may not allow you to download it because it doesn't work with your operating system, but there's no, like, Claris just can't like remove it, right? Makes sense? And so you can still go get stuff if you already had them on a device under your Apple account. So that's important to note. This is a good one right here. So we talk about this in our video training, right? This is a moving target by Claris. It is never, ever been consistent, ever. And I've kind of asked them for that, and I just think it's whatever's easy for them. So if you have a FileMaker 18 server, what versions of client are compatible with it? Okay, the rule of thumb I like to use is one version forward and one version backward. That's generally the answer. But sometimes it's two versions, right? So like here's 18 down here, and it supports all the way back to 16. So it does two versions there. Come over here to 19, it doesn't do two versions, it only does one version. And it vacillates and changes. So understand that when you're making a deployment, you're rolling something out. Like I think RCC has a 1804 is our main corporate server. But I think Jacob wants to change it to 19. But I think one or two of my, like my sales guy who's not a tech guy, I think he's probably using he has his work computer and he has a computer at home. I think his computer at home is old. It only runs FileMaker 17. And so when we upgrade that server, he won't be able to log in anymore and do his job. So you have to think about these issues that pop up. This is really great right here. FileMaker Cloud 19 supports these following clients, right? It supports 18 and 19. 18, Cloud 18 only supports 18 clients, right? So it's kind of interesting. And so this is, now what you see here, this is Cloud 2. See this right here? It says 2, says 2. This is Cloud 2. I can't really, it's being stupid. This is Cloud 2. This section right here is Cloud 2. Down here, FileMaker Cloud for AWS. This is really dumb, okay? It's one of those moments where I'm like, okay, I'm glad you're the people. You're not the people who have to train. The people who make decisions about naming are not the people who train or sell the product, okay? So FileMaker Cloud for AWS. What the hell is this? This is Cloud 1, okay? It kills me. It just kills me. So end of life notice, right? They're letting you know that it'll no longer be available for sale. And then as of January 1 of this next year, it will just quit working, period. I'm not sure how they're going to do that. But they've already tried to like kill people with shutting off their DNS entries, which won't be enough to totally kill it. You can get around that, but it'll be interesting. So anyway, so when you have Cloud 1.0, notice it says 1.18, right? So this is Cloud 1. So when I say Cloud 1 and Cloud 2, I'm not making it up. It's what Claris calls it. It's when as soon as the marketing department gets a hold of it, it gets Swiss cheesed into something else, right? So anyway, questions along the way. Cloud 1, Linux translation. Yeah, Oregon Dean's going to move to the Linux version. Yeah, just make sure, keep in mind the Linux version doesn't have, I don't think it has the XML gateway in it. It had a couple issues that it doesn't support, like Mac and Windows. There's like when you're talking to PHP and have these public-facing web pages, you want to make sure that if you're going to change the server, you get that support. Why is that relevant? Well, if you come back up to the engineering blog, which is right here, this is really a great thing. Just do a search for Google for the engineering blog. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. And so these are the topics in here. We can just talk about it briefly. But there's this PHP API, which Claris built years ago. They were a little bit late to the party then. Like anything else in the industry, they kind of get there a little bit late. And so they have deprecated this. The XML gateway is still in there, but the PHP is kind of removed. You need to read this. Pretty technical. It's like Megan and Larry and all the beginning and novice FileMaker people. Just disregard this. But if you're a serious technical person and you're building web-facing pages for the FileMaker platform, or you're trying to run an upgrade, okay, let's talk about that too. But if you're trying to do web paging phase, you need to read and understand this stuff right here. Okay. Upgrading the server, I have not read this. Let's read this together. Let's see how far I get before I scream. FileMaker server adds, yes, got it. Installation process, installing, yes, okay, supported operating system. Why is this not supported with 2019? I don't know, okay. Why a data center? No. Okay, so you have to have the standard, not the data center version. Not sure what's up with that. Okay. FileMaker server with Big Sur. Okay. You couldn't pay me enough money. This has had so many problems. Is it fully tested? No. Because here's what's normally happening on here, which you don't see. Is that people are buying the new M1 processors, and the M1 processors have a different chipset, and then they use Big Sur with that. And then FileMaker server runs really slow. okay, because it's not, FileMaker has not been optimized for the new Apple. Apple's going away from the Intel chips. They're going to what they call Apple Silicon. Technical stuff doesn't matter, but because they're not using Intel chips, that programming, that code they've got has to be updated and renovated and refitted so it takes advantage of that new chip. Otherwise, it runs into emulation or simulation. It's like if I was up here giving a speech to a bunch of Japanese and I would say stuff and then someone would translate it into Japanese as I wave my hands and cuss, okay, right? It would be a very slow, awkward conversation. So that's what goes on right now with M1 chips and FileMaker. I think Clara said yesterday that they are aware it's a problem and they are looking into it. I think the word was looking into it is what they use with me. Okay. They also are looking into this because there's an issue with IBM buying out Red Hat, and Red Hat owns CentOS, and so there's a question as to what happens with that. So there's always these fundamental shifts in the technology, and Claris is always trying to leap and keep the technology relevant and up to date. It's kind of a hard job. I think it's a hard job, and I don't envy that part of the job. So back to this. How we started here was upgrading to FileMaker 19.2.1. So you have some other previous version of FileMaker. So right here, FileMaker 1901 and early require an uninstall of the current operating system before performing installation. Okay, removing the version completely is considered a clean uninstall. Okay, if you have a server and it has a copy of FileMaker server on it, that server is forever polluted by that server. Forever polluted and will never be clean again. Okay, you can't. I don't even know where to start with this. This is it's such a bad idea, and I'll tell you where this becomes an issue. So when you do a server install, always plan on building a new server. If you are doing virtual servers on Amazon, there's no reason not to do this, right? Because Amazon will spin up a new server for you. It costs you $50 for the month or something like that. And what you do is you have the old server running, you have the new server running, you move a copy of the files over, you get to test and make sure it all works, okay? Twice in the last 6 months, and this is not me doing this, it's one customer and a former engineer who was supposed to be a senior engineer, which means he's supposed to know better, managed to, and he doesn't work for us anymore, did an upgrade on a customer, and he decided to not do a clean installation, but install over the top of the current installation. And even when Claire says if you can do an upgrade over the top of it, it should work. I'm telling you, historically, Claris has a very poor track record with executing on this in terms of a reliable installation. Just don't do it. Why bother? Okay, it's 30 years of doing this. The server came out. The very first server came out so I did a year or two at the time, and there was not even a server. The first server was FileMaker 2 server came out, and since that time, we always do a clean installation. So you wipe the hard drive, you install the operating system, you write the new server on it, period, and that gives you a fallback plan and a new plan. But say you're like, Richard, I believe everything that's in this technical document, and I trust Claris to make sure that it's going to work as operated. Okay, got it. So you're the most brilliant person in the world. Not even my Jacob Taylor recommends that, but you're going to do it yourself. Got it. Perfect. So before you do it, make a snapshot, a bootable backup, a snapshot image, a complete coherent snapshot image of your old server before you do anything. It doesn't actually say that in here. Like there's a checklist in here. Go do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. Nowhere in here does it say, hey, oh wait, by the way, yeah, I like this upgrade issues like this, right? So if it was all perfect, there wouldn't be upgrade issues. So anyway, so the point is that you make a snapshot. So when your upgrade goes badly, which I think in probably more than half the cases it will, okay, then and it doesn't work, then you can roll back. Now that's why you do a clean server, because you don't get rid of the old server, right? So people say, well, I have a Mac or a server, Windows Mac server, and I need to roll in a new operating system. Well, how do I put the new operating system on the old computer? You don't. You get a new server, okay? And if you can't afford a new server, then you take out the old drives, you put in the new drives, you keep the old drives on the side. It sucks, but it's technically a bootable backup, right? You don't cook it over the top of the same drive, okay? because there's no unwind for that. We had a guy call us Friday, and the installation was insane. And if you're here, I apologize, but we weren't involved in the decision to update this. There was no bootable backup. He had ODBC installed, JDBC installed, 3 plugins from 3 vendors, all sorts of other stuff installed. And of course, he went from server 16 or 17 up to 19, and it was utterly broke, and his business was offline. And we were already busy, right? We can only do so much tech support. And Claris is like, well, just review our technical document right here and follow the instructions. It'll work just fine. Clean install, clean install. Same thing. I got a call, panic call in first part of December from a customer we haven't talked to in years, right? Hey, you're responsible for the server. I'm like, who are you and where you are? Well, this engineer used to work for you decided to run our update of our server without making an image of a bootable backup. There's a reason he doesn't work for me anymore, okay? I'll just subject to say that. When I expect people to follow the rules. If they don't follow the rules with you, they're not going to follow them with anyone else. So, so yeah, that's the story. So anyway, that engineer blew that backup up, the installation up, because they never wrote down the EAR password, and he didn't check the EAR password, and there wasn't a bootable backup that you could have rolled back to where it wouldn't have been an issue, right? If you have an issue, you want time to resolve the issue without trashing your organization. Your organization still needs to use a file. You need to resolve the issue, whatever they are. It's kind of normal technology. Technology breaks, it gets upgraded, doesn't work the way it used to. You have to do some stuff to remediate that, okay? That's expected. But for you to assume that the upgrade will work correctly, it's not going to. It just doesn't work that way, okay? Despite the best meaning, well-intentioned person who wrote this document, it just doesn't do that. And the part where they say, oh, you can uninstall it and it will be perfectly virgin. I love that. I love that. How do you, like, I could say some really crass things, but how do you something yourself, right? You know, once you, question, what if I have container files stored on the FileMaker server? Okay. None of the things that I tell you changes at all. So here's how this works. You build a new server. You with Mac or Windows or Linux, doesn't matter what you're going to build it with. Make sure you know what the hell, okay, back up. Pick the operating system you know how to use, or pick the operating system your technical support people know how to use, right? So if you're a Windows shop and you say, I hate Microsoft, let's do something else. Make sure that the people who are installing the server know how to run Linux or Mac. If they're not, and you're a Windows shop, then maybe you should use Windows, okay? I'm just saying that because we run into that. It seems like common sense, but damn, right? People using Linux just because they want to use Linux, none of them know a single lick of Linux at all, right? But, you know, maybe Organ Dean's going to use Linux and he knows Linux. That's totally great. So, once you get the server installed, the FileMaker server comes up. It's got its little sample file running. It's working. Then you're going to take a copy of I don't have it on here, but it's a copy of, you go into your FileMaker server folder, you go into your data folder, then you go into the databases folder, and you grab that out of there. And in there will also be, generally on most installations, will be your remote containers. You're going to option or copy that, not move it, copy it, and make a copy and put it on the new server. Actually, stop hosting the files first. I should say that. Never copy a live file. Shut the files down, or take a backup off the old server, move it to the new server, put them in the same correct location, then turn those files on. And the container should come right along. It should not be a problem at all. Because the containers are saved generally right next to the database files. If you have a very special installation where the containers are saved on another drive, then you're going to have to move the database files on one pass and move the containers on another pass. But they'll get reattached, right? Yeah, so for Ed's question, he says he has IT people who know Windows. They have no clue about FileMaker. So a very good example. So you want to stay with Windows, 1. And 2, you want a separate new server set up, and you're not going to trust them to do a over-the-top install of the old server. You need a new server set up so they don't touch the old server. In fact, they shouldn't even know about the old server, right? They should get the new one set up. Then you, as a brilliant individual, Ed, can move the database files and the containers yourself, hopefully, right? The issue with, the issue with Larry's talking about, Red Hat makes CentOS. This is this free Linux stuff. Red Hat was just kind of like low cost, not super greedy company. Then they were bought out by IBM, which is like Apple or Google, right? If there's a buck involved, they want it, right? It's what corporations do. I don't have a problem with that, but just understand it is for what it is. So when a corporation gives something away for free, they're like, why are we giving this away for free? We should be making money on this, right? And so along the line, CentOS is getting not updated or rebranded or recharged or whatever is going on with it. There's some sort of problem where it's no longer going to be the thing that people want it to be, right? So the question is, would they use another version of Linux like Ubuntu or something else? Yeah, so there's Kermit talking about that. So I'm not going to get into the mechanics of this because for this conversation, it don't matter. I'm simply telling you that there are M1 upgrade issues that are going on. There's also going to be a Unix upgrade issue that's going to go on, right? We could spend 3 hours talking about Linux, and while Larry, you might understand it, Megan's going to be like, whatever. It's not helping my hair become any greener than it already is, right? I love green hair. It's fantastic. So we got that going. So the upgrade. So what do we all do? Like, I feel like we're in class, right? Everyone in class. What do? We create a clean server. You leave the old server alone until you're ready to shut it down. You don't upgrade it, okay? If I could each one of you just to do that one thing, if I could save one life today, the broadcast would be worth it. I saved one life, the life of one company from being shut off for a week or 2 weeks until they can get someone to unwind the mess they created, right? Good. Questions along the way. Peter Greens, hello. Well, Mary Margaret Millick from the Archdiocese of New York, welcome to the broadcast. As always, everyone, welcome. So that was that kind of question about that. There's a conversation. Once again, you do a search for I would type the word Claris Engineering Blog into Google, and you're going to get that. That's a good one. A lot of this stuff is over the, like I said, this stuff is in here is if you're interested in doing web-based applications. What I'm saying, like I always say PHP page. It's like slang for me saying Claris used to call a custom web page or custom web page where it's HTML page that has code in it that goes and talks to FileMaker on the back end. That's the public-facing idea. People hate doing it. It's very expensive. It's a very technical skill set. So people want to use WebDirect instead, except WebDirect has its own limitations, and it's very expensive for a public-facing website. So Claris is aware of that. They would like to make better things to help us with that, but that's kind of a down-the-road thing. They loosely alluded to that in the broadcast. So someone was asking a question about, it was up here a ways. I don't remember which one of you was asking about what I thought about the webinar. If you have a specific question about the webinar yesterday and I can answer the question about it, I will. But everything I'm saying here is not like new. Like the idea of, hey, let's not do a clean install of the server, or you can uninstall. Listen, I can't tell you the number of people who've complained to Claris over the years that they follow the instructions for sanitizing the server, and somewhere there's one preference file that's left on the machine that they either miss or Claris forgot to write about in their documentation that blows the whole upgrade process. So I'm telling you from experience, because Jacob Taylor was coming back to me, he goes, man, this new updater can actually update from 17 to 19. So it's like Monday and Tuesday, he tells me this, oh, it's so amazing. It's actually working. And then 3 days later, it's like, man, this sucks because it destroyed this and destroyed this. And I was like, I know, right? It's like a felony convicted felon, and they've been arrested 12 times for grand theft auto, stealing cars, right? So what are the chances after 12 stolen cars and 12 arrests that they're going to keep going? Pretty good, right? So that's kind of this issue here with the upgrades. It just is what it is. Don't get mad about it. Just do with it correctly. So okay, so we got an update from Mark Johnson, one of our marine moderators is the word I'm looking for. And he says, we have Mac Minis in here in the office, and I have one that, okay, so let me just bring this over here. Instead of I read, because I have Discord over here, I can read over here. Mac Minis in the office here. I have one that I'm setting up for FileMaker Server 19, but there are like 6 of us in the small office, and I would not suggest anyone ship running server for big companies whatsoever. Yeah, because, for example, that emulation, like I said, if I was presenting to a bunch of Japanese FileMaker developers and someone was translating in Japanese, all right, well, imagine that some things I say would translate very quickly, or they would just understand me saying layout, or I go, Command L, L. That way, is that Command L for you? Command L. And they go, oh yeah, great. So I do it, does it really quick. So like on the M1 processors, if you have software that's not optimized, like video editors, they edit really great. And then when you output the video, you save it out and it has to recompress and do all this math. It's like 20 times or 30 times slower than the Intel machine is replacing. So it's not as fast or faster, it's infinitely worse. And so that's because the code, the software has to be rewritten to optimize for the chips on the M1 processor, that M1 processor. And I guess they're going to have an M1 and an M2 and an M whatever, I don't know. But you get the idea. Scott says, Sharini says, a VP of product development. PD. So Vice President of Product Development at Claris. He's been there about 3.5 years, 4 years. He comes from a startup company that made Claris Connect before that. I'm pretty sure that's where he came from. He mentioned that Claris is installing FileMaker server farms in several locations worldwide. That is not a true statement. I assume that's to have FileMaker on servers instead of AWS. I did not hear it that way at all, Scott. I don't. Okay, so I haven't heard them say they're not using AWS. All their technology is totally hinged on AWS. If they're going to prototype some stuff that's not AWS, that would be interesting. Now, I will tell you that Apple has some of its own data centers, but Apple also cross-leverages AWS data centers because they can't handle all of the load themselves. When Apple has an update or something like that, it's just too much for them. So I don't know where the lines of this are. The fact that they're working closer with Apple than ever before, because we moved into their building. They moved out of their old office where they were kind of by themselves and they did their own thing to where they moved in kind of back in with mommy and daddy, right? And so they moved in, so there's this closer synergy, I guess, right, with what they're doing with what Apple's doing. Did not hear about that, but because, if we listen, so to put the historical perspective in this, the cloud, when we have Cloud 1.0, the one that's being deprecated, that was actually the third or fourth iteration of their cloud software they created. The first three never made it to market because they suck so bad. And I remember one of the things that pissed off, because they've been working on cloud for many years before this, and one of the first things they did back with version 1 was they went out and bought a bunch of high-end hardware, right? And they tried to do their own kind of servery data center thing. And they found out that the hardware depreciated so fast that 3 years later they were trying to auction off or give it away to someone to get it out of the server room because it was too old, right? And so they found out they didn't want to be in the hardware business of buying boards and volume and chips. And I can imagine what Amazon pays for drives and RAM and logic boards and stuff. It's got to be pennies, right? I mean, if a logic board's $100 for us, I guarantee they paid $4.50 for it, probably, because they're buying thousands of these things, right? So yeah. Yesterday's broadcast was about what they're doing in the future, which was kind of very loose, and then of course minor updates along the way, a certification test and this and that and the other thing. So, and they made a very big point that the customers are listening. Do I have any comments on the self-updating of 19 client? Client does not self-update right now. I haven't updated it recently. I guess I got them all updated. Typically, I run 360works plugins in mine. And I've showed this to 360works, and they're amazed by this. But every time I run an update, almost invariably on the Mac, it crashes the FileMaker, and it crashes that process. So Claris says it's something I'm doing, but all I'm running is the email plugin from 360works, and that's it. And I set the memory cache on FileMaker Pro to be bigger by default. It gives you a little extra performance. Like if you go to FileMaker right here, and you go to preferences right here, you can go to memory. I always upsize this a little bit. So it normally comes out really small. This gives you more cache, RAM cache, and it allows you to go a little faster. I always set that higher. So maybe me setting it to a higher value, which should make it faster, is crashing the update. I don't know. I think. Oh, in terms of them updating, I like their. So in terms of me liking their speed of development, like the agile. So last question, Organine's asking, do I like how fast Claris is updating? Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great. I like the fact they're updating fast. The way they're updating it is inducing less bugs in the code. We talked about that either in the fireside chat or some other thing. But the point is that they're inducing less bugs into the code. Like suddenly out of the blue, you go to layout mode and something and it crashes. That stuff is, a lot of that's been mitigated. They're making stuff much faster. They're trying to save money by supporting less versions of the product. Why they're trying to cut 18 off at the ankles in May and not support it anymore. They only really want to support 2 versions, right? And so I think overall, in terms of them adding new features and stuff like that, I think that's great. I really do. I think that's great. Yeah, and then Claris is finalizing plans for DevCon. I'm not going to talk about that because I don't know which part of that's classified, not. But basically, I kind of expect, I've been telling people this, I kind of expect it personally, and this is long before any announcements have been made, that it would be a virtual DevCon, because I don't suspect this vaccine thing will have been fully baked out by the time people want to get together, right? So anyway. Yeah, DevCon is good. I think I would love to. DevCon is good. Here's why you want to go to DevCon. Partly to hear Claris talk, although you can do that now, but partly, mostly to get insights from other people, right? Like, we're together here, so you pretty much all know about me and what I think. And you're like, well, what is Todd Geist thinking? What is Jesse Barnum thinking? What is Bob Bowers think at Lion? Blah, 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 right? What does Matt Navarre think? Is he even in the business anymore? I don't even know, right? Because he company kind of like went up. And then, Geist went to Proof Group. So there's been a lot of consolidation in the FileMaker business. I got an email from another CEO going, who am I going to buy out? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm busy. I don't have time to buy anyone out, right? All my money is going into you guys in the live streams, right? and like, yeah. So because there's been like 2 or 3 big mergers with FileMaker consultancies. So, and of course my wife goes, well, yeah, for some people this year's been really hard for them. And I go, got it. Remind me of that. Yeah. Because we're sufficiently horizontal. We didn't have like one vertical market. Like, we're not like 90% of my business is restaurants. Because if that would happen, we'd be out of business, right? So anyway. All right, cool. Well, yeah, you meet other people who use FileMaker. You see all the little tricks, especially with the add-on modules like cocaine, right? So like, so imagine, I would say if you went to DevCon, about a quarter of the people there are Kyle Williams? Kyle? Where you go, Kyle? Kyle Williams, Running Wild. About a quarter of them are Kyle Williams as Running Wild. Add-ons. Like a golden retriever running around. It's like, hey, I need to do something. I've got an add-on for that. No problem, right? And so about a quarter of them like that. About a third of them are women now, which is really, didn't used to be that way. It used to be what we call a sausage factory, right? And now it's about a third women, which is really great, right? You start to see that balance within the organization and stuff like that. So you see about a third of the people are totally brand new and never been to DevCon. And you get about a third of them that are like me, who are the people that have to show up, the grizzled old guys and old gals who have to show up, right? And what happens is it's a big social thing. As much as this group is social, imagine this group with food and drinks and beach balls and whatever else that would go on, right? So anyway, it's a lot of fun. So anyway, so that's it for today. We'll cover more things tomorrow. If you have questions, comments, additional questions, David's got a question there. I'm going to need you to pick it up. Send it to support RC Consulting. Attention to me if you want. If you just want to ask other people here for their questions, comments, let them know. Ask the question here. The Discord's up all the time. Peter, Daryl, everyone who's there, Salt Lake City. Sorry about that, Daryl. I mentioned you earlier. And a lot of people on Twitch, but it's good. It's good. So today's like just a news day, low-hanging fruit day. Hopefully you get these links, check out this stuff. There's some important reading in there that you need to do if you're maintaining and running your FileMaker server software. All righty. Thanks.
guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected, the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.